Marcus Trent wasn't a diplomat. He was barely an ensign. But now every species on the Galactic Tribunal spire knew his name. Or at least, knew the human who didn't flinch, didn't bow, and somehow twisted the law like a wrench in the right gear. The problem? Galactic politics wasn't a game you won with a grin. It was a minefield, and he just danced into the center with a spotlight on his back. The fallout started fast. Overnight, the spire's halls buzzed with whispers and glares. Marcus passed by a cluster of tall, skeletal Valari scholars who froze as he walked past, muttering in their clicking dialect. A deep-chested Skron war envoy sniffed the air and bared its teeth at him. Even the usually neutral Arvectians now eyed him, as if he were a puzzle they hadn't decided how to solve yet. "You turned us into a political grenade," Commander Takeda told him over breakfast the next morning. She hadn't touched her nutrient paste. Marcus sipped his coffee. "And yet here we are, still standing. For now. But the Zelthari don't forget humiliation. They're petitioning for an emergency ethics hearing. Let them. We'll bring popcorn." "Marcus, listen." Takeda leaned in. "This isn't over. They're not trying to just beat us in court anymore. They want to bait us into a misstep. The moment we give them a reason, anything, they'll strike back hard. And legally." That's when the invitation came. A diplomatic summit, hosted by the Arvexian delegation, was scheduled for that evening. A mix of species, neutral parties, and influential voices were invited. And among them, Marcus Trent. "They want me to represent Earth. Not represent. Attend," Takeda corrected. "Keep your ears open. Speak only if spoken to. And if there's even a hint of provocation, you walk away." "Understood." Marcus nodded. "Understood. Scout's honor." He had never been a scout. The summit was held in the spire's harmonium chamber, a glowing dome with transparent walls showing the slow spin of the stars. Every ambassador present was dressed in traditional garb or biosymbiotic regalia. Marcus wore his Earth Fleet cadet jacket, slightly wrinkled. Ambassador Velshrak was already there, surrounded by lesser functionaries of the Imperium. His voice lowered when Marcus approached. "Ah, the ape who reads fine print." Marcus gave a mock bow. "At your service, Ambassador Centipede." Velshrak's mandibles flared. But to Marcus's surprise, the Zelthari only let out a soft hissing chuckle. "You will be eaten alive in this place. Wouldn't be the first time I've been underestimated." The conversation shifted. A delegate from the Quarry Collective, a liquid-based intelligence, spoke about stability in disputed sectors. The Arvectians offered meditative governance. The Valari reminded everyone that order must be enforced. Then came the bait. A tall, shimmering figure named Chancellor Dren of the Neutral Trade Accord turned to Marcus. "Young human, how does your species intend to avoid future conflicts, given your recent, enthusiastic interpretation of galactic charter law?" Dozens of eyes turned. Marcus stood slowly. Every atom in his body screamed to be careful, to play it safe. "But humans don't bow down. We intend to do what we always do, improvise. We try, we fail, we learn, and we don't stop. Not when someone calls us primitive. Not when we're outnumbered. Not even when we're told the rules are carved in stone. Because sometimes, those stones are just waiting for a human to trip over them and crack them open." A beat of silence. Then whispers. Some disapproving. Some intrigued. Velshrak's gaze narrowed. Marcus sat down. His pulse thumped in his throat. Later that night, back in the delegation quarters, the lights flickered. Then cut out entirely. Emergency systems whirred on. Takeda entered with a tablet in hand. "Power grid anomaly. Localized. Someone's trying to probe our systems." "Zelthari. Most likely. They're not just trying to outmaneuver us politically anymore. They're escalating. Quietly." Marcus frowned. "We need something to punch back with. We don't punch. We prepare. And we stay ahead. Which means I want you digging." "Into what?" "Velshrak. His records. His trade partners. His past political rulings. There's always something they want to stay buried. Find it." Over the next 3 days, Marcus buried himself in encrypted transcripts and tribunal archives. He barely slept. With help from an Earthfleet AI named Vera, he uncovered odd transactions between Zelthari trade vessels and quarantine sectors. Places marked off-limits for resource harvesting. "He's been smuggling," Marcus muttered, watching logs scroll past. "Under the nose of the tribunal." Takeda read over his shoulder. "That's not just a violation. That's tribunal-worthy. The trick would be proving it. Vera pinged. Cross-referencing trade signatures. Match confirmed. Vessel Shrike's Talon made an unscheduled stop in Sector J, 22. Designated biohazard zone. Marcus grinned. We have him. The next tribunal session was already set. But if they moved too fast, Velshrak could bury the evidence. They needed a surprise. A setup. I'll take a team to the Talon, Marcus said. We have its current dock location. If we can access its NAV logs, we can force an inquiry. Takeda hesitated. It's risky. If they catch you on board, then they'll know we're not afraid of a little danger. She stared at him, then nodded. Take 2 security officers. Quiet. Fast. In and out. That night, Marcus and 2 operatives slipped through the docking layers of the spire, down to the darker sectors where diplomatic ships moored away from central view. The Talon was guarded, but Zelthari security relied on biometric locks. One of the officers used a mimic patch keyed to a known diplomat's scent signature. The doors hissed open. Inside, it reeked of metal and old plasma. They moved quickly, Marcus tapping into the bridge console. Vera backlinked to his implant and started downloading. 2 minutes, she said. Then footsteps. We've got company, one officer whispered. Marcus's pulse spiked. Hold them. 30 seconds left. The download bar blinked complete. They pulled back through a side hatch, into a maintenance shaft. Just as the outer corridor lit with Zelthari guards, the humans slipped away, shadows in the dark. Hours later, back in their quarters, the data came through. Coordinates, cargo manifests, biological materials labeled as for diplomatic review, all from blacklisted regions. Takeda stared. We don't just have a violation. We have a scandal. Marcus leaned back. Time to put it on the record. The next tribunal would be explosive. But even Marcus didn't know just how far the Zelthari would go to silence them. Because in the depths of the spire, something had been awakened. Something old. Something the Zelthari had hidden in those forbidden zones for a reason. And it wasn't happy to be found. If the Galactic Summit had a handbook, rule number 1 would read, never interrupt a Zelthari when they're declaring supremacy. But humans never were good with rules. Especially not Ensign Marcus Trent. He leaned back in the squeaky chair of the observation deck, sipping from a cold can of synth cola as the Zelthari ambassador boomed across the auditorium. The Earth delegation shall yield control of Quadrant 9 Alpha immediately, as per the Treaty of Submissive Races. Submissive my ass, Marcus muttered, earning a side-eye from Commander Rin Takeda, the lead human diplomat. She stood still as stone, flanked by a dozen stoic officers in dull blue uniforms, every face professionally blank. Except Marcus. He wore a grin. The Zelthari ambassador resembled a glistening purple centipede, adorned in ceremonial battle armor forged from neutronium plating. His voice echoed through the intercom, demanding obedience, loyalty, and predictably, unquestioning surrender. Behind him, the allied species looked on, many already resigned to their positions in the galactic hierarchy. Humanity, only 50 years into spaceflight, was expected to behave like a polite newcomer. But humans don't bow down to anyone. Ensign Trent, Commander Takeda whispered sharply. Stop smiling. This isn't a bar fight. Feels like one, he replied, not taking his eyes off the alien. Just with more legs. There was a twitch at the corner of Takeda's mouth. Almost a smile. Almost. The situation had escalated fast over the last week. A rogue asteroid had passed through Quadrant 9 Alpha, carrying with it rare deposits of psychoplasmic ore, an energy source more potent than any known in the galaxy. The quadrant wasn't officially claimed, but now every species wanted it. The Zelthari just declared they already owned it. The humans, being the stubborn apes they were, disagreed. The Grand Tribunal demanded a resolution. The Earth delegation was summoned to stand trial. Let me talk, Marcus whispered. You're an ensign. You're here to observe. That's a lot of talking for an order to be quiet. Takeda's glare could peel metal. Marcus stayed quiet. For now. Ambassador Velshrak raised one of his chitinous limbs, signaling silence in the chamber. Let it be known, Earth must comply, or be subject to immediate sanctions, territorial restrictions, and dissolution of trade protections. Your primitive independence is a danger to peace. The chamber murmured. Dozens of alien eyes, compound, bioluminescent, slitted, watched as Takeda stepped forward. Her tone was even. We respect the tribunal's authority. but Earth has surveyed and cataloged Quadrant 9 Alpha's resources through the approved channels. Any attempt to retroactively claim it is, respectfully, illegitimate. A polite statement. Rational. Expected. Velshrak hissed. Illegitimate? You insult the sovereignty of the Zelthari Imperium. Marcus snorted. Loudly. A few heads turned. Takeda didn't turn around, but her hand balled into a fist. Back on the observation deck later, Marcus was finally getting chewed out. What the hell is wrong with you? Takeda said, pacing in front of him. He called us primitive. I'm sorry, Commander, but I wasn't about to sit through that dressed up as a diplomatic mannequin. You're not here to react. You're here to learn. Marcus shrugged. Then I learned something. Bullies talk loudest when they're scared. The Zelthari aren't bullies. They're a galactic superpower with fleets that blot out stars. We have sarcasm and duct tape. Seems fair. Takeda sighed and sat. This isn't a joke. If we push too hard, they'll make an example of us. You know what that means? They'll blockade Mars. Start capturing our freighters. Or worse, they'll take Quadrant 9 Alpha and frame it as a peacekeeping measure. Then we stop them. With what? A lecture. Marcus's eyes glinted. No. Something better. A loophole. Later that night, in the Earth delegation's private strategy room aboard the Galactic Tribunal Spire, Marcus laid out a half-baked plan that hinged on one key thing. The fact that the psychoplasmic ore had already been mined. You what? Takeda whispered. We mined it last week, while the Zelthari were busy issuing threats. But the quadrant wasn't even officially surveyed. Didn't stop us. And guess what? There's a clause in the charter. Section 4.7b. All unclaimed sectors actively extracted by an independent party prior to sovereign claim fall under the common labor precedent. That ore's ours. Takeda stared. You went behind command. Risked an interstellar incident. I followed the rulebook. Just not the one they were reading. The next day, the tribunal reconvened. Takeda, with Marcus standing behind her, waited until Velshrak delivered his thunderous final claim. Then she spoke. Earth would like to invoke the common labor precedent, Section 4.7b. We have already completed extraction from Quadrant 9 Alpha. As such, it qualifies as a temporary human economic zone. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Velshrak went rigid. You dare? Takeda nodded. We do. Velshrak sputtered. That sector was not under claim. Exactly. Which made it fair game. A silence fell. The presiding judge, a crystalline entity named Threxel, clicked thoughtfully. The precedent holds. Until a sovereign claim is formally recognized, any completed labor remains with the actor. Marcus leaned over and whispered to Takeda. Told you duct tape and sarcasm would win. The commander didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. Back in the corridors of the human delegation wing, Marcus found a message waiting for him. A direct summon from the Zelthari ambassador. He looked at Takeda. Guess I made an impression. She raised an eyebrow. Just don't get yourself killed. Who bows before a centipede, anyway? He left, whistling. But as the doors to Velshrak's private chamber hissed open, Marcus found not hostility, but laughter. You are the first human to entertain me, Velshrak said. Perhaps we misjudged your kind. Perhaps you are less primitive than we believed. Marcus smiled. We get that a lot. Velshrak lowered his massive head. We will remember your loophole. Others won't like it. You have made enemies today. And some new friends, maybe? We shall see. As Marcus left the chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Because if there's one thing humans are good at, it's pissing off empires and walking away with a grin. There's a certain silence before things collapse. The kind that hangs heavy in the air, like gravity has decided to lean a little harder. That's what Marcus felt the moment the tribunal chamber doors slid open. It wasn't just the usual tension of politics. It was something older, something primal. He didn't know it yet, but the data they'd uncovered had started a chain reaction. Inside the tribunal hall, it was standing room only. Delegations from over 70 systems were present, including several species Marcus had never even seen before. Cloud-like entities that shimmered with emotion, insectoid queens flanked by bioengineered drones, and beings whose presence bent the light around them. And there, in the center, Ambassador Velshrak. Alone, Commander Takeda stepped forward with calm authority. Marcus followed, the stolen data drive secured in a diplomatic case. Their plan was simple. Present the evidence quietly, formally, and let the tribunal demand the rest. But the moment they reached the central podium, something went wrong. The lights dimmed. Emergency tones blared. The tribunal's crystalline judge, Threxel, shimmered red. "We are detecting unauthorized activation of quarantine-class energy signatures within the spire." Velshrak didn't move. Takeda frowned. "Clarify the origin." "Sector C9. Diplomatic Bay. Zelthari docked vessel. Code Shrike's Talon." Marcus froze. "It's a distraction," he said. They set it off. Before they could react, a deep rumble passed beneath their feet. A low, alien growl, felt more than heard. Species with telepathic senses recoiled. Some delegates bolted. Security protocols slammed into place, locking the tribunal hall. Threxel's voice pulsed. "Containment breach. Biohazard anomaly from Sector J. 22 confirmed on board Talon. Spore classification. Precursor entity." Gasps. Screams. Velshrak finally spoke, voice calm and bitter. "Your meddling has awakened something beyond your comprehension. This tribunal ends today." With a violent snap, he ripped free a concealed device from his thorax. It pulsed once, then exploded. A shield burst saved the center platform, but chaos erupted. The force shattered sections of the wall. Drones rushed in. Smoke filled the dome. Delegates panicked. Through it all, Takeda barked orders. "Evac Protocol Zeta. Get the civilians out. Marcus, Data Core, go." Marcus grabbed the diplomatic case and sprinted through the smoke. Around him, guards exchanged fire with Zelthari operatives. The Talon's AI had remotely triggered the spore containment, something ancient, alive, and spreading. As he ran, red biolights flickered down the corridor walls, sensor traces of the thing that now slithered free through vents and ducts. It wasn't just about politics anymore. It was about survival. He ducked into the archives, where Vera reactivated. Containment integrity is dropping. Spore vector now present on 5 levels. "Upload everything to the public network," Marcus panted. "Evidence, files, communications. Make it unerasable." "Transmitting." 5 seconds. Gunfire echoed in the halls. A Zelthari guard burst into the room, mandibles raised. Marcus ducked behind a console and flung the heavy case at its head. It stumbled. He rushed forward, using a maintenance rod to knock the alien cold. "Upload complete," Vera said. Marcus rushed back to the hall. By now, much of it was in lockdown chaos, but Takeda was still standing at the center, shouting for unity over panic. "This tribunal doesn't end with an explosion. We're still here. We decide what comes next." Delegates were listening. Some slowly returned. Security sealed the doors again. The threat, the spores, was now under observation, contained by internal shields. But the damage was done. Velshrak's actions had exposed everything. Hours later, when the dust settled and emergency protocol teams took over, a special tribunal session was called. This time, Takeda presented the evidence. The smuggling, the violation of biohazard protocols, the attempted cover-up, and Marcus spoke last. He stood before a crowd still shaken but now watching him with something new in their eyes. Not just curiosity, but respect. Humans didn't come to the stars to be ruled. We came to belong, but not as pawns. We play fair until someone flips the board, and then we build our own game. Today, Velshrak showed you what fear does to power, but we showed you what courage looks like without it. We don't bow down, and maybe that's what the galaxy needs right now. The chamber fell silent. Then slowly applause. From the Arvexians, the Scrawn, even the Quarry. The tribunal's vote was unanimous. Velshrak was posthumously stripped of all authority. The Zelthari's political power fractured. The biohazard species from Sector J, 22 was quarantined, studied, and kept far from any diplomatic hands. Earth was granted Provisional Council status. A seat at the table. Later, aboard the Earth Fleet vessel Intrepid, Marcus leaned over the railing of the observation deck. The stars moved slowly beyond the glass. Takeda joined him, a rare smile on her face. "You're still an ensign, you know." "Yeah, but not a quiet one." She laughed. "We don't need quiet. We need people who remind the galaxy we're not afraid." He turned. "What now?" Now we make sure the next time they look at Earth, they don't see a primitive world. They see a species that doesn't flinch." Marcus grinned. "And doesn't bow." The ship rumbled as it engaged its jump drive, and with a flicker of light, humanity moved forward into the stars, loud, unpredictable, and absolutely unwilling to kneel.